Davinci Xi surgical system is an advanced platform for minimally invasive surgery. 3 integrated components make up the Davinci Xi surgical system. The Vision Cart includes dedicated system processors that maintain constant communication between all the components when they are fully integrated. The Patient Cart maneuvers the instruments with 4 interactive arms. And the surgeon console enables the surgeon to visualize the surgical site and control the instruments. These 3 components make up the Davinci Xi surgical system. The Davinci Xi Patient Cart is the component of the Davinci Xi surgical system that docks to the patient during a procedure. The Patient Cart arms can be automatically deployed into position using the Patient Cart touchpad. The Patient Cart can be positioned using the cart drive enable switches located on the cart handlebars at the rear of the Patient Cart. Once the arms are in position and the initial camera arm is docked, targeting can be performed to optimize the setup. Then the remaining arms can be docked, and the EndoWrist instruments can be installed. The surgeon console hand controls translate the surgeon's hand movements to precise, tremor-filtered movements at the EndoWrist instruments. These instruments are designed with a unique wristed architecture, providing 7 degrees of freedom and a range of motion greater than even the human hand. The Patient Cart and EndoWrist instruments enable the surgeon to perform precise surgical tasks. Component of the Davinci surgical system houses an integrated Urbe-Vio DV generator, the system electronics, and video processors. It makes the communication among all 3 components possible via fiber optic cables. The Vision Cart's endoscope controller provides a high-intensity light source to illuminate the surgical site. The video feed is then transmitted through the various components of the Vision system to be viewable on the Vision Cart's touchscreen monitor and in the surgeon console's 3D viewer. The system electronics contain the electronics for advanced processing of the video image, system control algorithms, and advanced energy control when the surgeon uses the instrument function pedals at the surgeon console. The Urbe DV generator housed on the Vision Cart is a fully integrated electrosurgical unit designed to work with the Davinci X and Xi surgical system energy instruments, as well as with laparoscopic energy instruments. The surgeon console is the component of the Davinci surgical system, which enables the surgeon to remotely control the EndoWrist instruments and endoscope via the hand controllers. It also provides a 3D HD view of the surgical field via its stereo viewer. The surgeon also controls energy application via the surgeon console foot switch pedals. And an interactive touchpad at the surgeon console provides comprehensive control of video, audio, scaling, and ergonomic settings. All these features and controls give the surgeon total control to perform minimally invasive surgery with the Davinci surgical system.
Fogging of the Davinci Xi endoscope tip can affect visibility during procedures. Endoscope fogging occurs when a temperature differential exists between the scope tip and the air in the body cavity. To prevent and manage endoscope fogging, the sterile staff and surgeon should follow these guidelines during setup and procedure. Consider increasing the operating room temperature a few degrees to minimize the difference in temperature between the endoscope and the OR environment. Also, with the Davinci system powered on, begin warming the endoscope tip by connecting the endoscope to the endoscope controller at least 30 minutes prior to the start of a procedure. The illuminator does not need to be turned on during this time. To prevent disruptions from cautery smoke and endoscope fogging during the procedure, Use an insufflator with heated insufflation and smoke evacuation capabilities, or use a standalone smoke evacuation product. Heated insufflation can help to prevent a temperature difference within the body cavity. Smoke evacuation systems, in addition to using short bursts of suction at the site, will help minimize smoke buildup. Connect both the insufflation tubing and smoke evacuation tubing to cannulas that will not be used for the endoscope for the majority of the procedure. Another option is to use an advanced insufflation product such as SurgiQuest Air Seal, which utilizes high insufflation rates to circulate the air in the cavity to help minimize smoke, but does not have heating capabilities. If using the Vio DV generator, the Swift Coag mode for monopolar coag cautery is recommended to reduce smoke and the occurrence of endoscope fogging. The Davinci Xi endoscope features an optimized fixed focus range of 2 to 14 centimeters. The endoscope will be in focus within this range from the tissue. The Davinci Xi endoscope has a wide field of view, which may cause the user to place the endoscope closer to tissue. This may result in fogging during the use of monopolar cautery. To reduce fogging during monopolar cautery use and to maintain a similar view, it is recommended to pull back the endoscope and use the digital zoom settings found on the Settings tab display screen via the Surgeon Console touchpad.
The endoscope connects to the front panel of the endoscope controller. Once connected, it automatically self-calibrates and adjusts its white balance. When the endoscope is ready for use, a solid green LED will be displayed on the endoscope. When not in use, the endoscope connector can be stored in either of the endoscope connection holders. The port clutch button is located behind the cannula mount. It is activated by pressing and holding the port clutch button. It is used for adjusting the vertical and horizontal position of the arms, including the flex joints. It can also be used to adjust the remote center. Non-sterile staff can use this button when the system is undraped to position the arms for draping. Sterile staff can use this button to position the draped arm to connect to the cannula during docking. The cannula mount LED blinks blue when the port clutch button is activated. Non-sterile staff when the cart is undraped and sterile staff when the cart is draped can adjust the boom from patient side by pressing and holding the boom rotation button located at the back of arms 1 and 4. Once active, the boom can be rotated manually by pushing or pulling. The boom can only be rotated when there are no cannulae installed. The extended port clutch feature is available to sterile staff when the cart is draped or non-sterile staff when the cart is undraped. It can be activated by pressing and holding the port clutch button on any arm and moving the arm to its upper or lower limit. While holding the arm at its limit, the system will give a 3-second countdown. After the countdown, the feature is active and the boom can be raised or lowered using the arm that is being controlled. The Deploy for Draping button, located on the patient cart touchpad, moves the boom and instrument arms to prepare for draping. The non-sterile staff member begins draping by pressing and holding the Deploy for Draping button. If needed, he or she can release the Deploy for Draping button to stop the process. When the process has completed, a double chime will sound, letting staff know it is okay to release the button. If known, the anatomy and approach should be selected on the patient cart touchpad. The non-sterile staff member delivers the column drape to the sterile field. The sterile staff member prepares the column drape. Just before attaching the drape to the column magnet, the sterile staff member releases the tearaway tabs and unfolds the rest of the drape. Using the flex strips, he or she adjusts the drape around the column as needed. Once the column drape is correctly installed, guided setup will remove the yellow highlight. The non-sterile staff member prepares the first arm for draping and delivers the patient cart arm drape to the sterile field. The sterile staff member prepares the arm drape. Once the drape is prepared, he or she lowers the drape over the top of the arm and attaches the instrument arm sterile adapter. Then, placing his or her hands inside the drape cuff, he or she moves the drape along the patient cart arm at the 6 and 12 o'clock positions towards the column. Once the drape is extended over the arm, the sterile staff member attaches both metal discs on the inside of the drape cuff to the magnetic sockets at the top of the arm so that the flex strip is facing the front of the arm. He or she then aligns the cannula mount sterile adapter and clicks it into place. Then, the sterile staff member releases the tearaway tab on the back of the drape and carefully slides the drape material away from the gray handle. He or she stabilizes the gray handle and snaps the arm clip into place. Then the sterile staff member bends the flex strips to create a U shape for a clear instrument insertion path. The sterile staff member then completes this process for the remaining arms. Once each instrument arm sterile adapter is connected, guided setup will remove the yellow highlight. If the team is not ready to dock, the patient cart can be stowed by a non-sterile staff member using the Sterile Stow button. This feature is only available when draping is complete. After the system has completed sterile stow, additional arm adjustments can be made to bring arms into a more compact position. In a situation where only 3 arms will be used for a procedure, one of the arms may be stowed. Ideally, stow the arm closest to the patient cart column, either arm 1 or 4. All arms must be draped because all arms will enter the sterile field. Sterile staff will dock the arms that will be used in the procedure before stowing the outside arm. A sterile staff member collapses the front of the arm to be stowed, then rotates the arm to face opposite the other arms. He or she then lifts the arm and places it out of the way and as close to the column as possible. Finally, he or she checks the status of the instrument arm on the Vision Cart touchscreen to confirm that the arm is completely stowed. Once the patient cart has been draped, the patient has been positioned and ports have been placed, the system is ready to deploy for docking. The non-sterile staff member can then continue the guided setup. Anatomy and cart location may have been selected prior to draping, but if not, they can be selected now. To deploy for docking, the non-sterile staff member presses and holds the Deploy for Docking button. The boom simultaneously raises, pivots, extends, and rotates during deployment. As the boom moves into position, audible feedback will sound, and a double chime indicates that boom deployment is complete. Non-sterile staff can adjust the boom by pressing and holding the Enable Joysticks button on the patient cart touchpad. The boom position control allows the non-sterile staff to manually extend, rotate, or pivot the boom. The boom height control adjusts the boom height. Once the boom has been deployed, the non-sterile staff member can begin to drive the patient cart into position over the patient. A sterile staff member at patient side directs the non-sterile staff member using room landmarks rather than left or right directional language to avoid confusion. The non-sterile staff member drives the patient cart from the helm until the laser lines are positioned within 5 centimeters of the initial endoscope port. Staff members work together to maintain a clear pathway and patient clearance during movement. Once the laser lines are positioned within 5 centimeters of the initial endoscope port, the initial endoscope arm can be docked to the patient. After the patient cart is in position, the sterile staff can continue the guided setup. First, a sterile staff member will dock the arm used for the endoscope to the initial endoscope port. Once the arm is docked to the cannula, the patient cart stabilization feet are deployed to prevent the cart from moving during surgery.
Now install the endoscope.
A sterile staff member then installs the endoscope onto the arm.
Point the scope at the target anatomy, then press and hold the targeting button.
Using the instrument clutch button, he or she gradually inserts the endoscope to point at the target anatomy. While stabilizing the cannula at the patient's body wall, he or she presses and holds the targeting button on the endoscope. During targeting, the system positions the boom over the initial endoscope port and orients and positions the boom to maximize range of motion and create adequate sterility clearance between the draped arms and the non-sterile boom.
Targeting complete. Connect the rest of the arms. Do not move the operating table while cannulas are connected.
The boom may pivot, rotate, and adjust its vertical position. You will hear audible feedback as the boom adjusts and a double chime when the movement is complete. A sterile staff member then stabilizes the endoscope cannula at the patient's body wall and adjusts the flex joint of the endoscope arm to bring the arm in line with target anatomy. Next, the rest of the arms can be docked and positioned. Patient clearance is adjusted by a pair of buttons located on the gray portion of each arm. Sterile staff can use patient clearance to adjust instrument reach as well as patient clearance. Pressing the down arrow rotates the patient clearance joint lower to help optimize instrument reach. Pressing the up arrow rotates the patient clearance joint higher, providing more patient clearance. Activating these buttons does not move the remote center or instrument tip position and therefore allows intraoperative adjustments. These buttons can be activated if the surgeon is actively controlling the arm, but surgeon control will be interrupted and paused until the adjustment is complete. The instrument clutch button is located on the back of each arm at the top of the gray handle. It is activated by pressing and releasing, known as quick click, or by pressing and holding the instrument clutch button. Instrument carriage LEDs and instrument clutch LEDs will blink blue when activated. When activated, the instrument clutch button allows the arm to move around a fixed point in space called the remote center. This keeps the point of entry into the surgical site static and helps minimize port site trauma. Once positioned, the arm can be locked into place by letting go of the button or by using the quick click feature a second time. Sterile staff can use this button to advance the endoscope or the EndoWrist instruments into the surgical field. The Grab and Move feature is activated by grabbing any of the undocked arms along the gray handle and moving the arm. It unlocks all joints on an arm as if both port clutch and clutch are active. Once movement has ceased, the arm will lock into place. Constant control of the arm should be maintained until the arm has locked into place. Once an arm is docked to a cannula, the feature is no longer available. Non-sterile staff can use this feature when broad movements of the arms are required, like positioning the arms for draping. Sterile staff can use this feature to position the arm to connect to the cannula during docking. Once targeting is complete and the endoscope arm is aligned, the rest of the arms can be docked using the port clutch buttons. Starting with the arms closest to the endoscope arm, the sterile staff adjusts the rest of the arm's flex joints so that all arms are working in parallel toward the target anatomy, leaving a fist-width spacing between the arms. To increase instrument reach, bring the patient clearance joints down, leaving a fist-width space between the arms and the patient. Next, instruments may be inserted. Once the patient cart arms are docked, instruments can be inserted. Before insertion, instrument tips should be closed and wrists straight. A sterile staff member inserts the instrument tip into the cannula, then installs the instrument housing onto the sterile adapter until fully seated. When the system is ready, the arm LED will turn solid blue, and the icons on the assistant monitor will indicate that the instrument is engaged. When inserting an instrument for the first time, always insert under direct vision. If an instrument is out of view, you will see an off-screen tool indicator on the vision cart monitor. Once the instrument is engaged, a sterile staff member will guide the instrument into the surgical field under direct vision via the assistant monitor. Please note that both team members are watching assistant monitors while inserting instruments and controlling the endoscope. When the sterile staff member has released the clutch, the surgeon can take control of the instrument. For energy instruments, always make sure cables are connected before installing the instrument onto the patient cart arm. This avoids inadvertent instrument insertion should guided tool change or the instrument clutch be engaged, and ensures that energy is available to the surgeon as soon as the instrument is inserted. When the surgeon asks to remove or exchange an instrument, the sterile staff member will ask the surgeon to open the instrument tips and straighten the wrist. Once the wrist is straight and the tip is not gripping tissue, the sterile staff member can squeeze the release buttons on either side of the instrument housing and carefully pull the instrument out and up away from the patient cart arm. The instrument carriage will return to the top of the arm when the instrument is released. To exchange an instrument using guided tool change, the sterile staff member removes the instrument and installs a new instrument on the arm. Note that the LEDs begin blinking green and there will be a message on the touchscreen monitor. The sterile staff member slowly inserts the instrument into the surgical field while watching the assistant monitor and stops when resistance is felt. The system will stop the instrument just short of the previous instrument tip location, providing a 3 mm safety margin. The LEDs will turn solid blue, indicating that the surgeon again has control. Please note that pressing any clutch button on the arm, as well as a few other conditions, will disable guided tool change. If the instrument clutch is pressed by mistake, the sterile staff member will notify the console surgeon and insert the instrument under direct vision using the manual approach. Guided tool change also works for the endoscope, for example when cleaning or exchanging 0 and 30-degree endoscopes. Should it become necessary to port hop, sterile staff will exchange instruments with guided tool change wherever possible first. Then he or she will remove the endoscope and install onto the new arm using the instrument clutch button. Please note that when exchanging an instrument for an endoscope and vice versa, guided tool change is disabled. Finally, he or she will install the remaining instruments under direct vision to continue the procedure. When the procedure is over and the surgeon has released any tissue from instrument grips, the team is ready to undock. To undock the patient cart, a sterile staff member removes all the instruments and endoscope by squeezing the release buttons and pulling straight out and up away from the arm. Next, he or she disconnects all the cannulae from the arms and raises or repositions the boom as required to ensure the patient cart arms are clear of the patient and other obstacles. Once the patient cart is in a clear area, the drapes can be removed. If necessary, staff can lower the boom using the helm joysticks or extended port clutch to reach the top of the arm. To undrape the system, staff begin with the patient cart arms. First, they release the sterile adapters, arm clips, and magnets. Next, they roll the drape toward the front of the arm, inverting it and trapping the debris inside as it is removed. Always dispose of drapes in a biohazard bin. This process is repeated for each arm. For the column drape, a staff member releases the magnet and removes the drape, then disposes of it in a biohazard bin. Staff can then use clean gloves or ask for assistance to move the undraped arms as needed. When the patient cart has been undraped, non-sterile staff can stow the arms from the patient cart touchpad. The inventory management information on the Vision Cart touchscreen settings tab will provide information about the instruments used, including lives remaining and any expired instruments. When the team is ready, a non-sterile staff member presses the power button on any system component to begin the 10-second shutdown process.
Davinci is shutting down.
During this 10-second process, non-sterile staff may cancel shutdown by pressing the power button again. Whenever possible, leave the system cables plugged in to minimize exposure to contaminants. If necessary, once shutdown is complete, non-sterile staff may disconnect system cables, place the protective cap on each cable end, and store cables on each component's cable hook.